Hello and welcome to Melee's Turn Wheel, the series that takes a retroactive look at the Fire Emblem series chapter by chapter. I'm your host, I'm Melee Kirby, and today we're taking it back to chapters 18, 19, 20, Endgame, and the creature campaign of Fire Emblem, the Sacred Stones. Hope everyone's having a good day. I was going to do this later in the day. It's still it's the morning, but, close it in on the afternoon. I was going to do it a little bit later, but it's supposed to be really hot today, so I figured I might as well start recording, hopefully finish recording before it gets too hot to have my stuff off, my fan and my AC. So we'll see. Hopefully I can get this done. I don't think it's gonna take that long, but I guess we'll see. I have a good amount to say about most of these chapters, so. But anyway, before we get into any of that, I asked you guys last time, what was your favorite one-off or rarely used class in Fire Emblem? And I got quite a few responses, so let me go through those right now. Alright, so over on Blue Sky, at SuperUserPerson4 says, Wolf Knight is one of those classes I'll always have at least one of on my team for the sake of it. Mounted daggers, class skill doubles down on debuffs, interesting mount, and you get to give any unit you want a tail. How can I say no? Kinshi Knight, a close second. Ranged weapons on mounts are so fun. In a similar vein, I'm actually going to hop over to the Spotify comment I got because it's similar in its content. Solaris says, putting range on a dragon gives me some hard favoritism. Lord class, Barbarossa for me. I really like bows, as bad as they are, and being a dragon rider lord goes a long way. Kinshi Knight does very similar, but much worse. Honorable mention to Melusine, generic class, Malignite, with the Axe and Tome combo. Great skill to make up for pretty mediocre stats, but I'd ditch Dark Knight any day. Also, Witch, enemy class in Gaiden, technically playable only in Fates of the DLC. Teleportation. All really valid answers from both Soup and Solaris there. I did have to look up what Melusine was, because I didn't know. It is the unique class of Zephia from the from Engage, and then I believe you get a playable version of her. Her name is like Zestia or something like that. I don't remember. In the DLC that I never played, where I assume you can, it's the same class, you can use it. I think it's like Malignite, basically. I'm pretty sure it has like swords and tomes. I think I'm pretty sure it's just Malignite, but with swords instead of axes. I think that's what it is, but I don't remember. And then Kinshi Knight and Wolf Knight are both really cool options as well. Malignite, all these are great. I wasn't even thinking of a lot of these because. Honestly, it's so weird to me that Malignite has never really come back. I guess it's only it's never really come back. I mean, they did it in Fates, and then there's been like 3 games since then, and they still haven't dusted it back off, which I think is kind of a shame. They've done Darkflyer in 3 houses, but it's not the same. Jumping back over to Blue Sky, at Biozilla says, normalized ballisticians. I don't care if they're busted, they're fun. I'm also partial to the Ranger class, which debuted in FE4, because I like the idea of horsemen tasked with reconnaissance. At least I assume that's their purpose. Saying that made me think about horsemen, and mounted archers, like horseback archers, is something that the series has done multiple times, but usually in various different flavors. Because you're right, they had Ranger in like the Arcanea games, and then they had like Nomad, which feels kind of different, even though it's the same basic general idea. And then in the Teleus games, they had Bow Paladins and Bow Cavaliers, which are similar but not exactly the same. It's very interesting how that class has had, like, that class concept has had so many different spins on it over the years. But yeah, I think horsemen, despite the fact that mounted archers have come back in later games, I think saying that horsemen is a kind of unique class, I think is valid. So I went through that whole spiel, and I didn't catch until I was editing this part that I just completely, my eyes just glazed over the part where Biozilla specified that they were talking about a class from FE4, being the Ranger class, which is the promoted version of Free Knight, Beowulf, and Diarmid's class. For some reason, I assumed they were talking about the one of the FE 1 and 3 archer classes, but that class is actually called Hunter, and I was getting those mixed up. So I decided to keep in the whole bit about me talking about mounted archers because I think that it's a true observation, and I thought it was interesting. But no, BioZilla was talking about a completely different class, which was the promoted Sword Knight from FE4, which is also a pretty cool class, and I agree. So thanks for writing in, BioZilla. Drano on Blue Sky says Monk, as in the unpromoted light magic user class that only Lucius and Archer get, not the unrelated Three Houses class of the same name. Also, I really want Bride from Awakening DLC to make a reappearance. Heroes doesn't count. Lance, Bow, Staff is such a unique combo, and I really want to put it to use. But by the time you're strong enough to unlock the class, the main game's already over. That is fair. I've never used the Bride and Awakening. I don't actually even know how you unlock them. I assume it's like some DLC chapter that you need to beat or something like that. If you're saying that you need to be strong enough to unlock it, I assume it's gated behind like a difficult chapter or something like that. So yeah, that could be cool. I wonder, if you have access to like Citra or something like that, or even I think there's like tools to do it on a modded 3DS. You might be able to do like a little save editing and get a bouquet early on. That could be fun. Maybe I'll try that one day. And yeah, Monk is like not a very common class. They do like light mage in the Yggdrasil games, I think, but it's not exactly the same thing, especially in terms of its connotation, right? Like, I don't think of Sarah the same way I think of Sarah, the FE5 character, the same way I think of like Archer. It's a very different aesthetic, a very different connotation of what the class signifies. Similar to Horseman, honestly. So yeah, I think that's a really valid answer, and one that's like so weird to think about, man. There's so many games in the series, and yet there's so many like classes that like have not really been utilized as effectively as they could be. I think in general, light magic is not like it's very common for light magic to just not really be a thing in a lot of these games. I mean, I think after the GBA games, it mostly just goes away. There's like light magic in Tellius, but it's not very widespread. It's not in the Arcanea games or in Awakening or in Fates at all. I don't think any of those games have light magic. In Echoes, it's relegated specifically to like clerics and stuff. Oh, and I think like Celica gets it. I think even some sages get access to like aura or something like that. But I guess aura is a black magic spell, right? That's weird. That's so weird to think about, of aura being being considered black magic instead of white magic. But that's neither here nor there. And then yeah, I mean, three houses doesn't really have it. Like light magic as its own standalone concept is something that's mostly a relic of the GBA era, and then kind of like a little bit of a holdout in Tellius. Which is a shame. I think the Trinity of Magic is like so cool. I guess that's a topic that I can save for the wrap-up episode. I got to start making notes about like what I actually want to talk about in the wrap-up episode. So let me put that down as something to bring up. And finally, via email, Cephas wrote in and said, I think the most interesting rare class type in Fire Emblem, besides the aforementioned Summoner, is the Arcanean Ballistician, with its surprising variety in weapons, Stone I don't know how to say that one. Aerospate, Thunderbolt, Pachyderm, bulk and unique range/movement quirks. Unfortunately, the class sucks due to not being able to double or hit anything, but it still had a few niche gameplay applications in my experience. Now, I think it's very interesting because I got two people to write in regarding Ballistician. One person saying that, yeah, it sucks, but I really like it still. And then one person saying, I don't care how broken it is, I still want it in the game. And that's very funny. I think Ballistician is a very interesting class when talking about how good it is, because it's a class that like requires a good amount of thought into its application. Because yeah, you're right. On the face, I think a lot of people write off Ballisticians as being quite bad. But if you should listen to some high level or watch some high level like FE11 gameplay, because Ballisticians are like really really good. I think like the Don 0% growth cell TC uses Ballisticians a fair bit, but then even then, just like I'm sure there's other videos and stuff you can find on on ballisticians and things like that. They're a really cool class, and I like them a lot. Which does unfortunately bring me to the part of the video that or the part of the episode that I always struggle with, which is thinking of my own answer to the question, because I don't know what my favorite is. There's a lot of really good options out there, as you guys have pointed out. My gut instinct is to just say Summoner, because I really like the summons in FE8. I just think they're so fucking cool. Such a cool concept for a class. But I will think about it for a minute and see if there's any others that pop out. Maybe I'll do a couple honorable mentions. Okay, I did think of a couple that give Summoner a run for its money. I don't know. I think. This is tough whether I like Summoner more or the ones that I'm about to list off. So one that no one really mentioned, that I was kind of surprised by is no one brought up any of the Laguz classes, which I kind of get. First of all, the concept of a transforming class is not unique to Tellius at all. They pop up in a lot of games. Almost half the game, probably more than half the games in the series have some variant of either like a Manakete class, or Awakening has like the Togwell or the wolf skin and kitsune from Fates. So there's a lot of like variations on this idea. But I think specifically, the animal classes found in Tellius are pretty interesting. A lot of them aren't very fun to play around with, especially in Radiant Dawn. But there is one that I consistently really enjoy using in both games, as limited as it is in Path of Radiance, and that's the Lion class. I think that the Lions I think Gifka in Path of Radiance, and then all three of the Lions in Radiant Dawn are really, really fucking fun to use. Either Skrimir in Part 4, and then, once you get to the tower, you have access to Kanegus and Gifka. It's always a funny thing, too, for me, using Gifka, because if you call Gifka in Path of Radiance, and then use transfer bonuses, he'll always have boosts to his stats because of transfer bonuses, because he joins with capped level, and I think like capped strength or something like that, which is pretty fun. But yeah, I really like Lion. The other one, and this is like a little bit dubious as to if it counts or not, I guess, but I really, really, really like Dreadfighter. Dreadfighter is a class that was in... It started in Gaiden and Shadows of Valentia. Well, it started in Gaiden and it was brought back for Shadows of Valentia. And it is, in that game, it is a third tier promotion for Mercenary and Myrmidon, which are connected in that game, kind of interestingly. Because the Mercenary class didn't really exist as its own standalone thing, separate from Myrmidon until like FE3 or maybe even later. So yeah, if you want to consider Dreadfighter part of like the Mercenary class line, because that's how it was introduced, I wouldn't blame you. But in more recent games, and especially in the Fates, you get what is it? Not the Dread Scrolls, I think they're called. You get a couple of those as DLC in Fates, and I always like to grab one and give it to one of my guys, because I think if we want to say specifically Fates Dreadfighters, if you think that counts better, that's still perfectly fine with me, because the Fates Dreadfighter is so cool. You get access to swords. I think it's swords, axes, and shuriken, which is like a really cool combination. They're kind of like heroes, but you also get like a cool third option, or cool ranged option in shuriken, which is or hidden. What are they called? Like hidden weapons or daggers, whatever. Those are really fun. But I also really, really like the Dreadfighters in Shadows of Valentia. I think their animations are so cool. So yeah, I would say I think Dreadfighter is probably my favorite. But if you don't want to count that, then we can say Summoner with Lions from, I guess specifically Radiant Dawn, or Path of Radiance as like a close second. So yeah, that's how I feel. Pretty, honestly, really happy with all the answers I got, and the variety of answers I got too was really interesting. I think there was only like 1 or 2 overlap, and it was like Ballistician, and I think Kinshi Knight was brought up by a couple people. So yeah, thanks everybody who wrote in. Really appreciate it. And as always, since we're going to be doing our wrap-up episode next time, you guys know the drill. Who is your favorite character in Fire Emblem Sacred Stones? This is going to be an interesting one for me. Usually, when I think of this question, my brain just defaults to playable characters. But and there's nothing stopping you guys, and this has happened multiple times in the past, from answering with an NPC. My answer to this question has always been a playable character. Whereas this time, and I'll tell you guys who it is next time, obviously. But this time, it is my favorite character in the game is not a playable character. So that'll be interesting to see. This is the first time I'll be in this situation. But yeah, so let me know who your favorite character is at I'm a Melee Kirby at gmail.com. Or Twitter or Blue Sky at I'm a Melee Kirby, and then of course always Spotify comments is an option if you prefer that method. There might be other platforms that you can comment on too. I know like the podcast is on YouTube now. I don't know if you can comment on episodes on YouTube. Maybe you can. Shit, maybe I should start checking there. I don't know if I even checked if I've ever checked that YouTube account after putting the podcast up there. Let me do that real quick just in case. Okay, I have gotten one comment over on that channel, at least only one as far as I can tell, but it's from an older episode. So thanks for writing in, though. I do, as now that I know to check this, I can stay true to my statement that I made in previous episodes that no matter where you write in from, if I know about it, at the very least, I guess I'll put in that caveat. If I know about it and you write in, even if I don't acknowledge your comment, if I don't think it's relevant or don't feel like bringing it up, just know that I do read it. And I have acknowledged it. So thank you everybody who writes in, no matter where it's from. I always really appreciate it. It's definitely always a good boost to my ego, to see people, especially people who say that they enjoy the show. Anyway, okay, that's all that I have for this intro. So let's go ahead and get into our chapters for the episode, starting with chapter 18. I forgot to bring up my notes, but I'm pretty sure it's called Two Faces of Evil. Okay, so in the last chapter, we fought Leon, and he got away. So we're following him now, and we're headed to a place called Mount Nalaris this is within Darkling Woods. I always thought it was really weird that they just have like an evil volcano, just chilling here. But apparently it's part of Darkling Woods, which makes sense. This is all part of like a big expansive forest that's known for having a lot of monster activity. I think what kind of struck me about this information, though, is that Darkling Woods is fucking huge. Like, you see it on the map, and I guess, like, I don't know, like, I always knew it was, like, pretty big, but when you go there for the final battle, you kind of go further to the west. This extends, like, really far to the south and to the east. Darkling Woods takes up a very big chunk of this map if this is supposed to be part of Darkling Woods, which is just pretty interesting to me. Especially considering that it seems like, although information on this is a little bit inconsistent later on, but it seems like there is it seems like even before the Demon King started to come back, it was a very common hotspot for monsters. So is this something that people just have to like deal with a lot? If anybody wants to go from fucking like Johanna to Rouston, like can they go around Darkling Woods, or do they have to go through it? It's pretty interesting. I wish it answered some of these questions, but unfortunately it doesn't. Yeah, because I'm looking at the map right now, and the only place that like goes from Johanna to Rouston that doesn't go through the Darkling Woods, at least, you know, as far as the paths on the map goes, it leads to the fucking Lagdao ruins, which we're going to talk about later. But yeah, it seems like Rouston is like fairly cut off from the rest of the world, which is not something that the game ever like brings up, and I don't think was like it like the way that I was intentionally supposed to read this. But like, I don't know, they kind of this is what they seem to be suggesting. So I don't know. Interesting to think about. So as they're traveling, either Erica or Ephraim asks La Rochelle about, you know, some questions about Leon and the Demon King, because apparently Rouston is like the knowledge capital of the world. They keep all of the ancient lore and information on the Demon King and all that stuff. Which you'd think that would be useful information for all of the countries to have, especially considering that, like, Inez apparently didn't think the Demon King was, like, real. Like, when they were like, oh, the Demon King's coming back, Inez is like, oh, that's just a fairy tale. So like apparently this is stuff that the world at large has forgotten. So I don't really know why Rouston is the one that like keeps all this information if it's something that would benefit like everybody. I mean, I guess they learn about it in school. So I guess Inez just like didn't believe it when he was learning about it in school. I don't like. I'm a little bit confused. I feel like that one throwaway line from Inez last chapter or from last episode, I guess, like throws everything out. All the world building out of whack, which this game already has a bit of an issue with. As I mentioned a couple times, I think the world building in this game is like a little bit wonky and inconsistent. So I don't. It doesn't need any additional help feeling weird in that regard. But I guess whatever. Anyway, because Rouston keeps the ancient lore, Erica or Ephraim says like, hey, you know more about this Demon King stuff than I do. Based on what you know, do you think that Leon is it possible to save Leon? And La Rochelle essentially says no. If he's given over his body and soul to the Demon King, then the Demon King has most likely already consumed his soul completely, and is just at this point completely in control of Leon. We do gain an additional piece of lore only in Erica route, which is very interesting. Essentially, in Erica route, La Rochelle adds on something. She says that the only person ever recorded to have successfully fought against the Demon King's influence is Latona, who was the ancient hero who ended up founding Rouston. She says that he was able to cast off the Demon King's will, and in order to do so, you need a willpower beyond that of normal humans, essentially, is what she says. And I find this very interesting because this is the route where Leon does not cast off the will of the Demon King. This is the route where he is completely consumed. As La Rochelle says, he is just completely overwhelmed by the Demon King and did not survive. Which I think kind of makes sense because they have Erica and Ephraim have very different reactions to this information. Erica decides that she's going to hold out hope. She says, I hear what you're telling me. I appreciate that you're being honest with me, shooting straight with me, but I need to keep believing in my heart that it's possible to save Leon. And that's kind of where the conversation ends. So having this moment in Erica route does add on that additional context of like, okay, well, there is this little bit of hope that she still has. Like, oh, someone's done it before, so maybe it's possible that Leon survives. That makes sense as a reason why it would be included there. I also think, though, that it would have made a lot of sense to add in Ephraim route because that's the route. I mean, obviously, it's the route where it's applicable, right? Because it's the route where Leon was successfully able to push back the Demon King. So, from that perspective, it makes sense. But then also, I think it would have a really interesting impact on Ephraim and Leon's characters and their relationships because one of two things happens there, right? Either Ephraim hears this and says, well, I believe in Leon. I think Leon has the willpower to do that, so maybe there is a chance after all. Or he says, well, I love Leon. I think Leon's a great guy, and he's always so kind and so gentle and caring, but he's never had a very strong will. He's always been sort of beholden to the whims of his father. He's always had a hard time making decisions for himself. So no, I don't think that would apply to Leon, and I think he probably is gone because in the actual version of events that we see play out, where Ephraim does not gain this information, he assumes that Leon is gone for good. He decides to just fully commit and say, okay, my friend is dead. I'm gonna go in and make sure that he's avenged. And he completely gives up hope. But I think including this information would have a really interesting impact on their characters because either, it shows that, Ephraim has so much faith in Leon that it does impact like how he's able to view the Demon King and his relationship with Leon. Or, maybe this is a moment where because, okay, so something that we see consistently from Leon is that Leon has a lot of negativity and pessimism around his relationship with Erica and Ephraim. He assumes that they think he's weak. He assumes that they're not actually friends with him. They just like they look down on him. They pity him, which is obviously not true. But I think there is some room here for Ephraim to be like, yes, Leon's a great guy, but he has his shortcomings, and this is one area where I don't think Leon would be able to do it. And I think that could go a little ways to subtly, um, you know, making Leon's perspective a little bit more sympathetic. If Ephraim really does feel that way about Leon's willpower, right? And it wouldn't mean that Leon's right. It's entirely possible to have someone that you care about deeply think very highly of them, but still acknowledge that they have certain personal shortcomings, right? So it wouldn't mean, if Ephraim thinks that Leon couldn't do it, that would mean that Leon is right. They do look down on him. They do pity him. That wouldn't be true at all. But I think it would be a little bit easier to sympathize with Leon, because his concern is that he's not strong enough, and that his friends don't think he's strong enough. And there's a lot of like back and forth, a lot of like wishy-washiness about Leon's strength of character, and like his kindness and his gentleness. That's never called into question. But we never really do get an answer to how they feel about him in terms of his strength. Like, do they think he has the strength to rule a nation? Do they think that he has the strength to knock off the will of the Demon King? Erica seems to. Erica thinks that it's possible for him. So, but Ephraim, we don't know. We don't know about what Ephraim thinks. Anyway, just a little bit of food for thought there that I think would have been cool to see. They also do play here a song, and I think I'm gonna bring this up in the wrap up episode, because this is something I have left criminally under discussed, and that is that the music in this game is fucking fantastic. Really, really good soundtrack on this one. Maybe the best Fire Emblem OST so far that we've looked at here, because there's some really, really good songs in this one. This is one of them. This might be my favorite song in the game. It's just called Leon, and it is the theme that plays during most of the flashbacks that involve him. I believe it also plays in this scene. I mean, that must have been why I wrote it down, I assume. But yeah, it's a pretty cool song, and I like it a lot. It has a really nice air of melancholy, while also feeling, very airy and calming in the same way that, and I just think it really captures Leon's character very well, and I think that's pretty cool. Okay, so now that they have had this conversation, they make it to their destination, and realize that they are surrounded by Gorgon eggs. And that this has all been a trap that they've been led into by chasing Leon, so they need to fight their way out. That's where the chapter begins. This map is really, really, really interesting. One of the most unique maps I think, honestly, one of the most unique maps in all of GBA Fire Emblem. It doesn't really, get much more unique than this outside of, obviously they've done a few unique chapter gimmicks in, Thracia, to mixed results, in my opinion. But this is like a really cool concept that I think works extremely well. I like this map a lot. Essentially, it is a route map, which is, always kind of like a knock against a map for the most part. But I think it does really work here, because most of the enemies are not like that threatening. There's some reinforcements and stuff like that, but the actual number of enemies on the map at the beginning is quite low. Except for there are a lot of Gorgon eggs, as mentioned in the cutscene, and what the concept of this map is that every turn, the counter on those will go off. I don't know if it's like every set number of turns, or if there's a chance for it every turn. I just know that not every egg has a counter go off every single turn. But I think it's like, a handful of them go off every single turn. And when I say counter, they start at 0 HP or 5 HP, something like that, and then they go up until they hit max HP, which can vary. Some of them have max HP of 20, some have 25 or 30. So it's various different eggs have different numbers of turns that you can wait before they hatch. And once they do hatch, they become a full-fledged Gorgon. And the Gorgons are very dangerous. They have very strong long-range attacks, Shadow Shot. They have a 3-range spell called Stone, which makes sure if you get hit by Stone, you become petrified, and your Avoid goes way, way, way down. And you also get really high crit on you. which sucks, and it can really easily lead to you getting killed if you're attacked by an enemy on the same turn that you get petrified. Unlike in Thracia, you can just heal stonification, petrification with just a normal restore staff, which is nice. So you don't have to worry about it too much, but it is pretty nasty. And then they also have something called, I think it's Demon Surge, which is just a powerful magic attack. So you really want to deal with these Gorgon eggs before they become more of a problem for you, because there's like a dozen or 15 of them on this map. There's a lot. So if you let all of them hatch, that is a lot of Gorgons that you're suddenly going to have to worry about. It's very unrealistic that all of them are going to hatch, because some of them are like very close to your starting location. But the ones in the farther reaches of the map are pretty hard to get to and are surrounded by enemies that will guard them. The other thing about these Gorgon eggs is that they are extremely weak. I mean, they only have like a little bit of HP to start off with, and then even at their highest, before they hatch, they're still at like 15 or 20 HP max. And they're very, very frail and extremely slow, so you're basically always going to double them. So there will almost certainly be, like, no characters in your... like, you could deploy, like, a fucking, base level, maybe not, like, one of the trainees or, like, Gilliam, but you could probably deploy, like, base level Garcia, or maybe, like, base level, like, Noel, or something like that. Maybe base level Vanessa, or Cormag at the very least. And they will still be able to one round these eggs, and they get a lot of experience from it. So this can be a good opportunity to train up some characters that you need to get experience to. But otherwise, the idea of this chapter is that you're going around cleaning up these eggs as fast as possible using every tool at your disposal. Because they're not very hard to get rid of. So, like, this is why I think I mentioned last time that Cyrene was a very good candidate to bring to this map. And I do bring her almost every time I play through. I brought her this time because she's a flyer. She has really high mobility. She can cross over certain terrain that would be difficult for your other guys to get to. There are big open chasms that even flyers can't get across. I guess that would maybe make the map a little bit too easy, which is fair enough. But they still have higher mobility than a lot of your other guys. So you really want to bring as many long range items as possible, like javelins and hand axes and things like that, to get as many of the eggs as quickly as possible. I think I managed to do it without any of the eggs hatching for me. I did come close to dying a couple times because there are some reinforcements that come in that can be pretty scary. But for the most part, there's not that many enemies on there, and it's a mad dash to get to these eggs as fast as possible. Some of the enemies that are there, the ones that are actually present on the map at the beginning or that join as reinforcements, including a couple of pre-hatched Gorgons. There are just some Gorgons chilling out on this map, including the boss. So there are just some scary Gorgons around that you got to watch out for. That is sort of the I guess the mechanism that this chapter includes to make it not completely brain dead, to just bring a bunch of low level units that have high mobility, because otherwise you could just bring like I said, you could bring Vanessa or Kyle or Ford if you've never trained them, and just all these guys that have not that are not leveled up at all. But if you do that willy-nilly, then they'll probably die because they're going to get hit by the big spider or whatever, or they're going to get shadow shot from across the map by a Gorgon. So it's a really nice balance of utilizing tools that you have at your disposal, using unconventional methods of fighting that you don't usually use all that often. Javelins and hand axes are obviously very good in this game, but they're rarely as necessary as they are in this map. While also you need to be careful not to overextend or to get careless, because if you do, then you'll get got, and that's pretty cool. I think it's a really, really interesting concept for a map. One of the best in the entire game. We're actually going to talk, I guess just in full transparency, I think that this is the only map in the entire game that is actually in consideration for me to beat Chapter 10. I really do like it that much. We're going to talk about it. I haven't fully made up my mind yet on it even, but we're gonna discuss at the end which one that I prefer between the two. Because it is a very tough call, and I think this one has a really solid chance of beating it, and being the best map in the game, because I think it's genuinely that good. There are lava tiles here, similar to FE7, actually, we saw these in the Ellawood exclusive map where you get to Randall. But then most people probably know them from FE6 Chapter 8X, where if you stand on certain tiles, you can see where they are. They have like different tiling. You can you're gonna take a little bit of damage. I actually really like their use here. And it's one of those examples, and this is something I keep coming back to. When we had Soup on to discuss Arcadia, he mentioned the concept of having, elements of a map that are annoying in isolation be interesting and used to good effect, in certain contexts. In that instance, we were talking about like Desert and Fog of War being, annoying by themselves, but interesting in conjunction with each other. But I think it's a similar concept here, right? Where normally the lava tiles are very annoying, but I actually really like them here because they complement the map design very well. They make you ask the question, like, do I want to move my full movement range if it's going to land me on a tile where I'm guaranteed to take 10 damage? Can I afford to take that risk? Is that something that's going to add up over time? Especially if you're doing it multiple times, that's 20, maybe 30 damage. That adds up very quickly. And then obviously, in you could just heal it off with the vulnerary, especially in like chapter 8X of FE6. But in this, you want to spend as much time as possible attacking, at every opportunity if you can get in the range of a Gorgon egg. So you might not have the action economy to use a vulnerary every turn that you take damage, right? So you have to ask the question, like, am I gonna gimp my movement range a little bit, like one or two spaces, or am I going to go the full way and land on a movement tile? Because the difference between one or two tiles really does make a substantial difference over the course of this map, right? Because you really don't want these Gorgons to hatch. It's a pretty cool use of the mechanic, and about the only time in the entire series where I think a concept like this has been used to good effect. They do keep annoyingly bringing this back. I think it's come up in at least two more games after this that I can think of, and I don't like it in either of them. But we'll see, how I feel about them when we get there, I guess. Anyway, that's basically it. The chapter is pretty straightforward, especially if you know what you're doing. You bring the right guys, and you use effective strategies. You can beat this map pretty quickly. It didn't take me that long. Oh, this is another map, by the way, where warp is very useful. I think this is the first map in the game, actually, where warp is, like, very, very useful, because you can use it to warp somebody to get to the Gorgon eggs faster, essentially, which is pretty cool. And, but I don't have warp because I forgot to get it, so haha. But yeah, anyway, after the map is over, you beat the boss, you clear out all the enemies and all that stuff, Leon shows up, just for a brief moment, and the Lord spots him, and then he runs away. And whichever lord you have as your main lord goes after them. And this next scene plays out very differently depending on which lord we're talking about. So let's start with Erica. Erica goes after Leon, and nobody else is around. It's just Erica. She catches up with Leon, and basically Leon puts on the pleading face, and says, please, Erica, I'm fighting really hard, but I can't keep the Demon King at bay forever. I need you to help me. I need you to give me the Sacred Stone so that I can use its power to fight off the Demon King. And Erica decides to do it. And of course, immediately, Leon reveals that he was just faking. He is in fact still the Demon King and not Leon, and immediately destroys the Sacred Stone. And this is a pretty infamous moment for Erica. A lot of people really don't like this and think that Erica's being very stupid. I mean, I agree. Like, I think it's undeniable to say that this is a stupid decision. But I also don't think that she deserves the level of vitriol she gets for this. Especially, we're going to talk about Ephraim in a minute. I think that Ephraim also acts very stupidly in this scene, in a way that is at least as bad, if you ask me. So yeah, Erica giving over the Sacred Stone to Leon, it is very stupid. But I can also absolutely see it as a desperate attempt from someone who really just wants to help her friend. Doesn't want to accept the fact that her friend is gone. And in a moment of weakness, makes an irrational, impulsive decision, and pays the price for it. Which is, I think, for Erica's character, I don't really think it builds on anything that we've seen up to this point. Erica's arc, if you can even really call it that, because she hasn't had that much of an arc over the course of the game, to be honest. Needing to accept the fact that, like, violence is a necessary part of because she hates fighting. She really wishes that people could just resolve things with words instead of with fighting. And I think you could very easily extrapolate Leon as being a figure that she looks up to in that regard, because he's always so kind and so gentle. And she sees him as the type of person who would resolve a conflict with words rather than with strength. So, I mean, there's all sorts of things you can read into her character there, but this moment as being like I think this is supposed to be this game's equivalent of, like, Leaf sending his army to Ulster, or Uther dying for Hector, right? Like, it feels like it's framed as like a lowest point, turning point of their character arc, but it's not really like I don't think she learns any lesson here other than, like, don't believe evil demon lords who are trying to lie to you, I guess. I don't feel like this is comeuppance or a just desserts for a flaw that she has consistently been shown to have throughout the game. Unlike, and we'll jump over to Ephraim now. Where Ephraim is in a similar situation. He runs after Leon, this time because he fully believes, he's fully on board with that Leon is gone forever, and so he decides that he is going to just charge off and take revenge. And this is why I argue that Ephraim is doing something at least as destructive and impulsive and irrational as Erica is here, because he is, at the beginning of this chapter, he puts on the guise. I say guise because I really do think it's a front that he's putting on. But he seems calm. He accepts it. He says, okay, if Leon's gone, then it is what it is. I need to accept it and move on, and just, move forward. But I really do think that in his heart of hearts, he's fucking lying to himself. He is devastated beyond belief that this is happening, and he cannot accept it. Differently from how Erica can't accept it, where she literally, refuses to believe that it's true. Whereas Ephraim believes that it's true, but his response to that is to become so hell-bent on revenge that he loses sight of everything else. And so when he sees Leon, he just goes off the fucking deep end and says, okay, you're the Demon King, I'm gonna kill you right now. And that's how he ends up getting himself caught in a trap. Leon puts some sort of, like, magic rune on the ground, and he gets like paralyzed by it. So Leon's able to just walk right up and nab the sacred stone right off of him. And that's it. He destroys it. So I think the not the dichotomy, like the parallels here between Erica and Ephraim are really interesting. Where they both make an irrational, stupid decision. Both of them are equally in the wrong, if you ask me. And both of them are, these were both incredibly preventable mistakes, but they're also very human, very character-driven decisions that I think makes them both really interesting, And I think it's okay for a character to make bad choices, and not, and like, and be dumb. Like, that's okay sometimes. And it's interesting to me, I say sarcastically, that people don't really seem to mind this when it's Leaf. People seem to really like it when it's Leaf, actually. In fact, people, frankly, don't really seem to mind it when it's Ephraim either. I don't see nearly as many people complaining about this with Ephraim as I do with Erica. And I'll give you 2 guesses, or 3 guesses, as to why I think that might be the case. No prizes for getting it correct. But if you've been listening to the FE8 episodes up to this point, you know probably exactly what I'm referring to. Yeah, I mean, it's sexism, right, guys? I mean, it always comes back to sexism. Both in the writing of the game, not in this instance. I don't think anything about the writing in the game here paints Erica in like a worse light or anything like that. This time I think it's the fans being sexist, but that's just gamers. Am I right? But anyway, I think it's a really cool scene for both of the characters. And even though it's frustrating, and I think if I'm being real, right, like I think the conflict is maybe a little forced. I think these are like characters who up to this point have been mostly rational people who haven't really made these sorts of decisions before and had them backfire like this. Like, I don't know. I think it works better for Ephraim because Ephraim has been consistently shown to just like charge in gung-ho, get a little bit in over his head. But at the same time, it's worked every time. So, this being the one time where it doesn't work isn't really something that I can necessarily blame on him, I guess. I don't know. Either way, I don't feel like it is a I don't feel it is a I'm trying to think of the right wording. I don't think it really works as a character arc moment, if that makes sense. Like I don't think, as I said with Erica, even with Ephraim, I don't think that these are scenes that work as the low point of a character arc, which it feels like they're supposed to be. But in isolation, I think both of the scenes are pretty good. If you are willing to look past the fact that they're not really built up to all that well over the course of the game, from these characters, I think that they work fine. Anyway, that's a long amount of time that I spent on this. I'm not even done. In Ephraim's scene. And Eric, it's really funny actually. If you go look at that video I mentioned last time, where it's the differences between the scenes, it is hanging on the one image in Erica's route for like a while, like minutes on end, while Ephraim's scene just keeps going and going and going. Because this is the scene where, and I mentioned this a couple of times already, so this isn't a surprise to you guys. But in playing the game, this is where you first learn that Leon in Ephraim route is still in control of himself. Kind of. There's some, especially towards like later on in the game, there's some allusion to maybe that's not entirely accurate. But at least as far as Leon's concerned, he is still in control of himself. He's still the same guy who Erica and Ephraim knew and is making the same decisions. And he has a long monologue here, or a long back and forth with Ephraim. Essentially, he confesses to Ephraim, and he even literally says the words, "I've always loved you," which there is a very popular, I guess, like ship in the community, where like Erica or Leon is dating both Erica and Ephraim, or at least one or the other. He's very explicitly in love with Erica, and it's in Ephraim's case, it's mostly framed more like a rivalry. But then you have moments like this where he just literally straight up says, "I've always loved you," and of course there's like friendship love, platonic love, all that stuff. But that is not how it feels when he's saying it in this scene. I'm just gonna say that much. And I think it makes sense. I think maybe not necessarily dating both of them at the same time. That'd be kind of weird. But I think I absolutely see shipping him with both Erica and with Ephraim. I think that there's really strong textual evidence for both, frankly. And I think it's a cool moment. But he says, like, "I've always loved you, I've always hated you," and talking about how he's always been jealous and always kind of like seethed with jealousy and all that stuff, about how much stronger Ephraim was, how much he looked up to him, how much he wishes he could be Ephraim. And even though consistently, as we've seen, Ephraim has always been like, "Yeah, I know how to resolve problems with my lance, but you have something that I don't, which is the capacity for resolving conflicts peacefully, for research and you're a kinder, stronger character than I'll ever have, all that stuff." But Leon was just never able to shake the feeling that he wasn't good enough when compared to Ephraim. And so he managed to, in his lowest moments, when the Demon King was about to fully take him over, it wasn't Erica that did this. It was Ephraim that encouraged Leon to assert his willpower back over the Demon King and keep the Demon King's power inside of him while still maintaining control over his own body and his own will. Now, what we see later on implied is that the Demon King is still, influencing his actions. This is something that I speculated on last episode, and that is more or less confirmed later on in this one, that the Demon King is still there, and even though he has to take more of a back seat compared to Erica route, he still is sort of pushing Leon in the direction that he wants Leon to go. Leon says to Ephraim here in this scene, there's a lunar eclipse coming. He doesn't use the term lunar eclipse, but it's like when the sun is swallowed by shadow, or a solar eclipse, not lunar eclipse. When the sun is swallowed by shadow, I'm going to do some sort of ritual in Darkling Woods. I want you to come and stop me, because after I finish the ritual, I want to do the ritual, but after I finish the ritual, the Demon King's just going to fully take me over, and I'm not going to be able to stop myself from trying to destroy the world, so you should come stop me. And then he leaves. And that's the end of the chapter. I think there's a little bit of a cutscene where they follow up and see, everything else that's going on. Everybody catches up with him and they talk about what happened. But for the most part, I think that's it. I mean, I didn't make any other notes. So I think that's really all that is worth talking about in this chapter. So yeah, overall, really cool map and really cool story. I ended up, droning on about this one for a lot longer than I was thinking I would. But man, really, really strong start to this episode, I think. Really, really cool chapter. So moving on to chapter 19, which is called Last Hope. Now that the Sacred Stone of Rene is destroyed, the only thing that they have left is to go to Rouston and hope that they can use that Sacred Stone. I don't remember if it's now or later that they say this, but as long as they have one Sacred Stone, they're good. So they just need to get the Stone of Rouston, and then once they do, they'll be able to seal the Demon King away. Ephraim or Erica is a little out of it because of what happened last chapter, but they still, they say, okay, no, I'm good to fight. I think this could have been a cool moment. I mean, the series never really does this, so I'm not going to hold this against FE8 for not being for not innovating in this way when this is still something I don't think that's happened in, I think it happens in 3 houses, but I think it would have been really cool if now, 3 houses is different. Anyway, I think it would have been really cool if, your main lord just wasn't playable in this chapter, and instead the main lord became the other one for a chapter. I think that would be really cool. But no, unfortunately, they're just yeah, no, I'm good to fight. I'm a little bit out of it still, but I think I should be good. And then they just play like normal, which is I think it could have been a cool opportunity. But anyway, They're in Rouston Castle. They meet Mansell, who is the La Rochelle's uncle, and he's the Pontifex of Rouston. He's like a religious figure, and also their leader. And he's pretty cool. He says welcome everybody and gives everybody a place to stay. During the night, they are attacked by Grotto soldiers, led by Reeve. Reeve is still around. He's the last of the remaining generals, and he's fighting you with human Grotto soldiers, but seems to indicate that they're servants of the Demon King. So part of me wonders if they're mind controlled or something, or maybe they're all reanimated corpses or something. Because none of the soldiers ever say anything. If that is the intent, then it's never mentioned anywhere that this is they're using reanimated corpses to fight. Nobody mentions it on your side. Are these guys all true believers? Do they all think the Demon King is rad as hell? Actually, there's a lot of them, so I would assume probably not. But who knows? I guess. Anyway, this is a Fog of War defense map, which is not. Fog of War I don't really like, but a Fog of War defense map is actually kind of interesting. I think is this the first time we're seeing a Fog of War defense map? It might be. But even if it's not, I think it's a cool concept because the playing more defensively, the Fog of War makes less of an impact when you don't necessarily have to. You're not being expected to push your way out into the fog anyway. You're mostly staying still and waiting for them to come to you. which is I think makes Fog of War work better than it does in a lot of instances. But it's still only okay. It's also like really fucking hard. The enemies that they throw at you in this map are really, really, really strong, and I had to reset a few times. The most common ways, apparently, there's a couple common strategies for this chapter to make it easier. One of them is to rescue the Pontifex, because that's the lose condition, is that Mansell dies. So you need to rescue him, and then you can hold up in the in one of the treasure rooms. We'll talk about the treasure in a minute. But if you just put someone there in the door and everybody else piles in there, then you're mostly fine. Or you can end the map early by warp skipping to Reeve. Even if I had warp, I wouldn't be doing this because that would absolutely qualify as warp skipping, which I'm not allowed to do. So I then I also I really didn't want to hole up in the treasure room because that seemed lame. I wanted to play it straight. And it was hard at first. I did manage to get it after a while by using Myrrh. And unfortunately, Myrrh ended up nuking her Dragonstone into the ground. It was worth it because she was taking no damage. But she kept doing this fucking thing, right? Where I would have her at the front door with, I think Ephraim was next to her. And she would... Okay, so there were two instances, right? There were the Swordmasters who she would not double. And then there were all the other enemies who she did double. So either she could crit on the enemies that she would double to save Dragonstone uses, so that she wouldn't have to attack twice and use 2 Dragonstone uses, because she had good crit. She had like 20 or 30 crit, I think. But even if she didn't do that, that would have been absolutely fine. Because all that would happen is that a Myrmidon or a Swordmaster would go up to her, attack her, not do any damage, and then she wouldn't kill the Myrmidons in one shot, and she wouldn't double them. So she would just do one, and then that would be the end of it, because nobody else would be able to get at her that turn. Unfortunately, she kept critting the Swordmasters to allow more enemies in. 3 times in a row, she kept critting the Swordmasters, but she fucking refused to crit any other enemies that would have actually saved her Dragonstone uses. I was livid. I could not believe my eyes. By the end of this chapter, I started with I didn't deploy her in River of Regrets or in Two Faces of Evil at all. And by the end of it, so she started with 29 Dragonstone uses. By the end, she was down to 3. And I was beside myself. That absolutely atrocious luck that I got on that one was insane. But, it is what it is. Can't complain too much. I managed to get through it thanks to Myrrh, so, she's doing her best. Okay, so there are chests in this map. Most of them aren't very good, but there's 3 on the right and 3 on the left, and then one of the chests on the right has something good, and then one of the chests on the left has something good. So you kind of want to visit both rooms, even though only one of the chests on each side is worth anything. On the right, I believe it's a Bolting Tome, 5,000 gold, and then the actual item you want over there is a Fortify Staff, which is very helpful in some of these late game chapters. And then on the left, there is a Rune Sword. I don't remember what the second one is over there. It's a Rune Sword, and then I don't remember. But it wasn't that good. It was whatever. But then the actual item you want over there is a Speedwing. So definitely worth heading over there if you're able to. Personally, I think the Fortify Staff is a little bit more useful at this point. I managed to get both of them, though, thankfully. Even on my successful attempt of this map, though, Renak died. I underestimated how many enemies were going to come in as reinforcements from the right, because there's reinforcements that come in from the bottom right, and they killed Renak. So rip Renak, but I sent the Fortify Staff to the convoy, so he was fine. I was fine. I got the Fortify Staff. There's also a secret shop here, which sells promotion items, which isn't that useful, in my opinion, because at this point, you're probably using a fully promoted team. If there's anybody that you have that isn't fully promoted by this point, then you're probably not even going to use them until the creature campaign, so I don't really get what the point of this secret shop is. It does sell physics staffs, and I bought a few of those, so that was nice. Having additional physics staffs is always really handy. There's also something else there, but I don't remember what it was. I think it was barrier or something. There is a way to get a light brand in this chapter, and Now that I'm thinking about it, I think the light brand is like really, really rare. You don't get very many in this game. I think this is the first time you get access to one, and it's really hard to get too. Because there are green units in this chapter, other than Mantle. There's like armor knights, maybe a couple of generals, but I think it's mostly armor knights, if not all armor knights. And they suck. They suck really, really badly. They die in like 2 hits to every enemy that's on this map. They're extremely terrible. But you need to keep at least 4 of them alive to get the light brand, which is like, I don't think I've ever done that in my entire life. Even on attempts of the map where I warp skip, it takes a couple of turns to get in the right position for the warp skip, and within those couple of turns, if you're not like actively trying to save them, the green units just die. They fold that quickly. Like they are not good. So I don't know if anybody has gotten this light brand. I hope it was worth it. Because the light brand isn't that good of a weapon as far as I know, unless they like really buffed it in this game for some reason, which I assume they didn't. They didn't really change any weapon stats between 7 and 8, I don't think. And then the price of getting it is or the method of getting it seems like really annoying to me. But you know, if you had fun with it, then happy for you. You know, maybe I'll try it at some point. But anyway, and there's also this is also where we get access to brave weapons. They're on enemies that drop them. There's like a warrior with a brave axe, I think, sniper with a brave bow, I think a paladin with the brave lance, and then a sword master or a hero with the brave sword. I don't remember which one. I think it's a hero actually. So really good weapons. Brave weapons are awesome. I really, really like using brave weapons, especially since they're only B rank in this game. I don't really know why they decided to make silvers A rank, but brave weapons B rank. Brave weapons are like way, way, way fucking better anyway. So yeah, not really sure what that's about. We do get a little bit of Reeve lore here. This is like the only time we ever get any Reeve lore. Apparently he was originally from Rouston, and he was excommunicated from Rouston's church, possibly from Rouston as a whole, and he seems very salty about that, so he wants to take his revenge on Mansell for doing that to him. We don't know anything about why he was excommunicated, probably because he worships the fucking Demon King, but, you know, who can say? There's no way to tell. I mean, I think I've said basically everything there is to say about this map. I had Myrrh and Ephraim locking down the bottom, kind of, and there's a couple, like, guys I kept around to do, like, cleanup duty, guys who, like, slipped into the castle as reinforcements, and then up top I had another fight going on. Naomi and Colm were doing pretty good. Tana was up there also, and they were handling some warriors and snipers and heroes that come in from that side of things. Mostly it was the guys at the bottom that struggled, but I did lose, I think, Noel once, and I had to reset for that. After you hold out for, I think it's 13 turns or 12, something like that. It's a little bit. This is quite a long defense map if you're not warp skipping it. And it's pretty tricky. So I actually kind of like it. I think it's it feels like it captures the good aspects of some other defense maps that we've talked about that I've really enjoyed. It's not quite as intense, but it does feel like you're actually being assaulted by really tough enemies and being forced to like hunker down and actually play defensively, which is fun. I really enjoy when the game actually makes you feel like you're on the back foot, because it's so often, you know, especially in contrast to, this is really cool actually, I didn't even think about this, in contrast to the previous chapter where the goal is to move as quickly and efficiently as possible offensively, it then flips around the other side and puts you on the back foot and says, okay, now you need to fortify your position and play defensively. That's really cool. I think that having these chapters back to back was a really smart idea, and some really excellent game design, in my opinion. Even though I think, you know, first of all, being able to warp skip the map and kill the boss and end the chapter early, I always welcome that option. You know, I think it's cool for people who don't like defend maps to be able to not do that. But I also think that sometimes it's okay to force the players to you know, I don't think that every defense map should necessarily have an out like that. But it's cool that the option exists for people who want to do it, especially when it's like difficult, right? I don't think it's not difficult to do in this map. Is the thing you just warp, and your best boss killer over to Reeve, and it's over in like 2 seconds. It's not very fun in my opinion, but I do it most of the time because this chapter is really fucking hard. But it's not it's I wish I maybe sometimes I wish it wasn't necessarily possible. Okay, after you beat the chapter, you get the Sacred Stone, and you also get the Sacred Twin Relics of Rouston, the last ones that we're getting. And they are the Light Tome, not Oriole, that's Alib. What's it called? Evaldi, and that's going on La Rochelle, and then the S rank staff Latona, which is just it works similarly to the Saint staff. I think it heals everybody up to full in a certain range and heals all their status conditions, or maybe it's the whole map. I don't remember. That's going to Natasha. Natasha is my S rank staff user for this playthrough. Okay, next up we have Chapter 20, which is called Darkling Woods. The beginning of this chapter is an enemy POV with Leon making his way to Darkling Woods, and he meets Morva here. And Morva has a different interaction with Leon depending on if he's the Demon King or if he's, actually Leon. And I'll go over a little bit of the differences here. So in Erica Route, he immediately clocks that it's the Demon King. He says like, "Oh, you can't hide your foul odor," or something like that. Your foul energy. So he knows it's the Demon King, and they go back and forth a little bit about how Morva's going to stop him. And they talk a little bit about the history. Morva was there in the battle 800 years ago, which I think we already knew, but I'm not 100% sure. But he was there alongside the humans. Grotto and the Bishop Latona and all of them. They were all with Morva, and Morva was there with all of them, and he fought alongside them to help seal the Demon King away. But now the Demon King says, "I'm too strong, I can't be beat, and there's no way you're going to be able to stop me." They talk a little bit about Myrrh. I don't really know what that doesn't really go anywhere. It sounds like Morva wants to know something about Myrrh, but I think it's like a localization issue. I don't know what it says in original Japanese, but it probably makes a little bit more sense. Anyway, there is something about this conversation that I wanted to bring attention to because I mentioned in the Myrrh SSS episode that Morva seems... I was curious what Morva's opinion was on humans, because he despite the fact that he seems to respect humans and care about helping them and all that, he does say to Myrrh you can never be with humans. You are separate from humans. You are not the same as humans. You do not belong with them, and because we're separate, we're different. And that doesn't really get expanded upon here. What Morva does say is that he lives and breathes to protect mankind. I believe those are his exact words, which does imply a really strong, love of mankind. It seems like he really does, genuinely want to protect people, and doesn't look down on humans at all. That was kind of the impression that I was getting from the Myrrh support, but it's not. It really isn't like that at all. It doesn't seem like. So I think part of me is maybe he just wants to guarantee that Myrrh will take up his mantle when he dies, and he doesn't want her to shirk the duties of being a guardian protector of mankind, which is understandable. It's also a little shitty if that is what he was trying to do, telling his daughter that she has to live an isolated life because she needs to be the guardian of mankind or whatever. I think maybe not the strongest parenting I've ever seen in a Fire Emblem game, and that's saying something. But definitely could be a lot worse. This isn't a Hilda FE4 situation or anything. The Ephraim version of the scene plays out a little bit differently. He doesn't realize that it's the Demon King at first. He thinks Leon is just a normal human and tells him to leave, but then he quickly realizes that the Demon King has a hold on Leon's heart, and in fact he's able to tell somehow that Leon has let the Demon King into his heart on purpose. And Leon tries to say, I need to protect people. I have the Demon King's power. I can do anything that I can do anything to save my people. And Morva basically says, you're deluding yourself. The Demon King is taking you for a ride. He's making you think that it's all your decision, but you're actually still doing everything that he wants you to do. And Leon is in denial about that. So they go back and forth for a little bit, but eventually Morva says, "There's nothing I can say to stop you. I'm gonna have to kill you." And in both instances, the fight fades to black. We don't actually see what happens there, which I think is a little bit lame. I think it could have been cool to see that play out, but I guess they didn't want to make him more of a battle sprite. It could have just been like a recolored Mer spray. I don't think anyone would have cared. But anyway, we do eventually find out the results of this battle. But we'll come back in a second. Okay, so as the party approaches, Mer talks a little bit about how her father is in the area and that she's very excited to see him. But first they got to get to the other side of the swamp, and it is surrounded by monsters and stuff. And also Reeve is here. Reeve is this is where we fight, because after even if you kill him in the defend map, he just runs away. So he's here still. And the way that you need to beat this map, it is a seize map, so you can go around to the other side of this swamp, and then there's a little strip of land that will let you get inside this area over to the temple. The temple is at the center of the map, but you can't access it from where you start. You need to either like go around forests and mountains and all that stuff, or you can fly over the swamp, either do some warping or rescue dropping and all that stuff. Reeve does move, and there's quite a few like scary enemies over there. And plus, I decided, I don't have warp first of all, and I also decided that warping people over there to kill kill Reeve and the other boss, which we'll talk about in a second, would be warp skipping. So I mostly just had people go around. There are a lot of reinforcements in this chapter, like a lot. There is a shitload of enemies here. It reminds me honestly of chapter 21 of FE6, just in terms of the sheer overwhelming number of enemies that you have to deal with. But it's pretty fun. I like just dealing with these hordes of enemies. I think, maybe in FE7, right? FE7 had maps like this, but there were like 3 or 4 of them. And I mean, that's really the biggest difference, right? Like it doesn't happen very often in this game. This is really the biggest, offender in terms of just having like a shitload of really weak enemies that you have to deal with. So it just doesn't feel as overwhelming, and it's also not as bad as Victory or Death. There aren't like 250 reinforcements or whatever absolutely insane number that was. So I like it. I think it feels more like, as I said, chapter 21 of FE6, where it feels like this is their last stand. They're throwing everything they have at you, and you gotta overcome it. The other thing you have to overcome is the boss that's guarding the temple, who is not Reeve. Reeve is standing over to the side, and as I mentioned, he will move and attack you, so you gotta be careful. But there's also a new type of monster that we have not encountered yet. A Draco zombie is what it is called, and if you hover over it, you see that it is named Morva. Unfortunately, Morva did apparently perish in his battle with the Demon King, and now he is a resurrected corpse, being puppeted by the Demon King, which is very unfortunate. Morva, I would have liked to see more of Morva. I think he's a cool concept for a character, but alas, he's just not. He just did not lock in hard enough. Overall, it's a pretty straightforward map. It feels sort of like a mad dash to the end through gauntlets of enemies, and that's fun. I think it's a fun concept for a map, even if it, is sometimes used to less than ideal effect. But I like it in this instance. Anyway, that is the end of chapter 20. There's some more cutscene and stuff like that. Morva was very easy. I did have I had Mer fight him. Which feels very sad. I used her last Dragonstone use was to kill Morva, which is fitting, I think, but also very sad. But he's also he's kind of a pushover, honestly. He's weak to arrows. Like Draco zombies are just weak to arrows because they're considered flying enemies, I guess. Mer is also weak to arrows. I never mentioned that, and it's not really relevant most of the time, but it is something to keep in mind. So any like bow and arrow will probably just take him out pretty quickly. But I also used Mer there. He is considered a monster, so he gets because he's a Draco zombie, so he takes effective damage from the Dragonstone. After beating the chapter, we are greeted to a flashback from Leon's perspective, where we see Vigard die, and so Vigard asks Leon to like say like you've told me what you've seen in the future, like tell me again, and he recounts everything that he's seen, and then Vigard says you need to, now that I'm gonna die, you need to take up the mantle and you need to handle this, and he says I can't do it, I'm not strong enough, what do I do? And he says, oh, maybe I should go to Rene for help. And Vigard immediately shuts that down and says, no, they can't help us. They wouldn't help us because it would require them to take on way more refugees than they would be capable of accepting, and they need to look after their own. And so Vigard shuts that idea down. I had some thoughts about this, especially like before I saw this cutscene. Part of me was getting ready to talk about Leon, if Leon really wanted to save everybody in Grotto, it did feel strange to me, and not necessarily in like a poorly written way, but it felt strange to me that he didn't reach out to Erica and Ephraim for help, because I was wondering why he wouldn't do that, and part of me is like, oh, does his jealousy and his pessimism about them run so deep that he feels that they would not actually help him in this instance? Does he not? Does he think that their bond is so like fake that they wouldn't reach out a hand to help him in this situation? But it turns out it was actually Vigard who said that he shouldn't reach out to Rene. And I mean, based on the scale of what we see happen, and what we hear about is going to happen, I do kind of get where he's coming from, because there is a lot of people who died, and it would require the relocation of a lot of people, in order to make feasible. So I sort of do get like why this wasn't considered a viable option in Vigard's opinion. But it feels kind of hand wavy when I feel like there was like something they could do to help, especially considering that Rene is also allies with Frelia, and like we don't really know anything about Rouston and Johanna's role in all of this, but like I don't know, it feels like there's something could have been done, if Leon had reached out, but I guess it is what it is. And again, I think it was. I'm not really criticizing the game. If anything, I'm criticizing the fact that this wasn't Leon's idea, because I think it would have. I think if like Leon's desire to help his people was hamstrung by his own self-confidence issues, then I think that it would have been, and maybe it would have undermined his character a little bit too much. But like, I don't think he would have been like, no, Erica and Ephraim, I don't want to go to Erica and Ephraim for help, because, I'm not saying that he would have decided to prioritize his own pettiness over saving lives. I don't think that would have made sense. I think that would have been extremely out of character. What I'm saying is that I think he should have thought about it and come to the conclusion that Vigard did, really. Like, say, like, oh, they wouldn't help me, they would need to look after their own, they would say that I need to handle this on my own. So like I think there would still be room there for him to be like genuinely doing the thing that he thinks is best, even if maybe it's a little bit colored by his negative opinion of himself, and of his relationship with Erica and Ephraim. But yeah, not much else to say about the cutscene. Let me just rewatch it real quick, because I wrote something else down here that I don't remember. Okay, so a couple of things. First of all, on looking this up, I realized that this only happens in Ephraim route, which again, why the fuck, whatever. I feel like Erica route Leon is so much less interesting, and I don't know why they decided to make this decision, like cutting out huge parts of his characterization like this. Doesn't make any sense to me. But anyway, it's just, what I wrote down was scrolls, and what I was referring to is that Leon, is talking to Noel and says like, you need to take off the seal on the Sacred Stone. You've seen the scrolls. You know that we can do something to prevent this. So I guess whatever like ancient magic lore that they're reading up on, like, has some indication that like they can use the power of the Sacred Stone to. I guess I just wish they was a little bit more detailed. I get it's probably vague on purpose, because they didn't want to like come up with the whole like magical explanation for what was happening. But it feels so vague that I find it like hard to see where he's coming from on this one. But maybe that's just me. Anyway, Yeah, there's also something I forgot to mention, a difference in the last chapter. After you beat Morva, or in chapter, yeah, in this chapter, at the end of this chapter, after you beat Morva, and seize the castle, there's a scene between Myr and the main lord. Myr and Erica, like, Myr is just sad that she realized that it was her dad. Erica doesn't seem to have fully put it together. And so she kind of just like doesn't really know like what's going on, and Myr plays it off, so she's like, okay, whatever. Ephraim also hasn't immediately put it together, but after talking to Myr, he's like, oh, I get it. He realizes that the Draco zombie that they fought was Morva, and he tries to sympathize with Myr, but Myr says no. We're like I gotta be strong. I gotta push forward. I'm doing fine. Just we gotta keep going. That sort of thing. It's a good moment for Myr. But it's not, she doesn't get all that much, but it's a cool scene, I think, for both Ephraim and Myr. Erica not as much. I think Erica's maybe a little bit dumb here, but it's fine. Okay, finally we have the Endgame chapter, Sacred Stone, is it Sacred Stone or Sacred Stones? I think it's just Sacred Stone because they only have the one. Whatever though. This is Endgame. Like in previous games, I guess in FE6 it was its own chapter, but in FE7 it was its own. In FE7 there was one chapter that had two parts. It's very similar. In this game, there's two Endgame parts. Let's talk about part one first. Leon shows up, and regardless of whether it's Erica or Ephraim, Leon is actually in control of his body a little bit here. The Demon King lets him out a little bit, maybe in Erica mode just to like toy with him. But he basically just says like, you got to stop me. In Erica mode, you got to stop me. And then in Leon's in Ephraim mode, he and Leon have like a little back and forth about why he's doing this. Whether this was preventable, whether this is something that Ephraim did to upset Leon. Anything like that. And in both instances, I think it's a really good scene for Leon, because in Erica route, this is like one of the few times we get to see the actual Leon. He says like, I didn't. When the Demon King told me that I could have everything that I ever wanted, I didn't turn him away like I should have. And that's on me. And I am deeply sorry. And Erica forgives him, which is sweet. Okay, so the way this chapter goes, you have to make it to Leon. He's at the other end of this big room, and you got to fight your way there. Through there's a couple of extra Draco zombies here, which is pretty cool. I don't know where those corpses came from. This is a really cool environment because if you look down the pit, the gaping hole in the middle of the floor, and like off the sides of like the pathways and stuff, you can see like creepy glowing eyes coming from the darkness, and that's really cool. Like, what's down there? I want to know. Is what creatures foul lurk in the dark that are worse than what we're already seeing. That's really really cool to think about. But anyway, there's also chests here for some reason. I didn't even bother to look up what they have. I guess I'll do that now. It's like one of them is a master seal, I think. And then I don't remember what the other one is. Yeah, it is Sacred Stone. Just one Sacred Stone. Yeah, the one on the left is a Master Seal, and the one on the right is an Angelic Robe, which the Angelic Robe is, like, kind of nice. But I guess at this point, unless you're doing the creature campaign, I really don't see the point in getting these. The Angelic Robe could be kind of nice because there are some of your guys might be in, like, one-shot range of the Demon King later. So I guess from that perspective, it might have been handy, but I don't know. I think you'll probably manage. He's not that hard. Getting to Leon is like a little tricky. There's a couple of tough enemies along the way. The Gorgons here can be pretty strong, and the Draco zombies. Obviously, you want to bait them out and have them fight. Your guys, because they do a lot of damage. They one shot some guys, which is pretty tough. I think they do just like flat 30. I think it's like 30 something damage. It depends on their attack stat because it can vary. But yeah, actually getting to Leon is a little bit tricky. Leon himself isn't like that hard. He hits like a truck, but he's also very slow, so it's very easy to double him. So if you can like get a good couple of attacks in with like your bulkier guys, and then finish him off with someone like Erica, or someone who's using like a legendary weapon that's maybe a little bit on the frailer side, he can go down pretty easily. He's definitely not the easiest final boss in the world, but not particularly difficult either, in my opinion. There's some good battle quotes here. I don't know if he has one with Ephraim on Ephraim route. Actually, no, he doesn't. Wait, what the fuck? Hold on. Yeah, he does. He does. He does. He has one with the main lord on that route. Let me see if I can find all of them. Hold on. Yeah, okay. It's only the main lord that he has a battle conversation with. I really like the Ephraim's one with Leon and Ephraim route. It's really cool. But I'm not gonna repeat it here. You can just go look it up. I really wish this is maybe a little bit silly. But I really think it would have been cool if he had one with Noel. I mean, apparently Noel was like a way more important part of this story than I remembered. So I think it would have been cool if he had a battle quote with Noel. In at least one of the routes. Probably Ephraim route, but I think it would have made sense for him to have that conversation there. But otherwise, I mean, I also think it would have made sense to have one with the other Lord. I think it's dumb that he doesn't have one with Erica and Ephraim route and doesn't have one with Ephraim and Erica route. That doesn't make any fucking sense. But, small things, small grapes, not enormous. So whatever. Okay, so after you defeat Leon, his body dies. He has a time for one last conversation with his friends, but then he passes away. But the Demon King has not yet been defeated. His the flesh that he was puppeting around is no longer of any use to him. So he's going to take on his true form and fight you guys as the Demon King. Fort Mortis is his name, and he's pretty tough looking. He's a big guy, like huge, monstrous figure. In the center of the room, you get teleported to like a different space. I don't know where, like somewhere in the back of the temple, I guess. I don't know, whatever. And then everybody who you brought to Endgame has a little quote. This is one of my favorite recurring tropes in the series, is when everybody chimes in the final battle with one last quote. I think it's really cool and serves as a nice way to like acknowledge the people that you brought and give them one last little bit of relevancy before the game's over. So I'm always a big fan of that. None really stood out to me this time around, but there's some cool ones in there, I think. And then you just gotta fight Fort Mortis. He's very easy. As I said, he's a little bit powerful. Like he hits like a truck, like Leon did. So he might one shot some of your frailer guys. But otherwise, like he has like a lot of health, but you can do so much damage to him with your sacred weapons that it really doesn't, he doesn't amount to much. He's not very tough. Final bosses in Fire Emblem have always been this really difficult middle ground where very difficult to find a middle ground on, whereas like some of the time they're really, really hard, like the fucking flame dragon, the fire dragon in FE7 I think is too hard. And then Ashnerd is another example of this. Ashnerd's way too fucking hard. But then you also have like Idun and Fort Mortis and Veld and stuff are like way too easy. So I don't know. There's a couple that hit like a good middle ground. We'll talk about those later on in the series. I think as the series goes on, I think it's actually gotten progressively better at this for the most part. They've reverted a couple times, but not often. Anyway, pretty good fight. I mean, if nothing else, it looks really cool. But the fight itself is a little bit on the dull side. But yeah, that's it. You defeat the Demon King. You seal him in the Sacred Stone of Rouston. And that's it. That's the game. You've successfully done it. There's an epilogue where everybody goes home. Everybody has like a moment where they're like, now that we've done it, we'll move on with our lives. I didn't get to see La Rochelle, Dazla, and Renak do their thing because I guess Renak died and they didn't rewrite the scene to have Renak not there. They just if one of the people that's supposed to be in the scene is dead, then they just don't do the scene. So I didn't see Erica, or I didn't see La Rochelle or Dazla's or Renak's version of the scene, which is a little bit of a bummer. But then you go through the epilogue, you drop everybody back off at like their respective places. You go like Myrrh is in Darkling Woods, I think. You go with like fucking La Rochelle's in Rouston. I think someone's in Frelia. I think you go back to Frelia at some point. I don't really remember. Nothing in this epilogue really stands out to me. I mean, it's mostly like pretty standard wrap up stuff. Except there is one part that I really, really like, which is at the very end, where they show one last note to end the game on. They show a flashback of Erica and Ephraim meeting Leon for the first time, and they have a really sweet conversation there. And I really like the way that this story ends. I have my issues with it, and we'll talk about some of those in the wrap up episode. I think especially the world building in this game is very all over the place and not very well fleshed out. But the actual plot and like the key players in the story, I think generally are really good, especially Leon. Leon is I think you could argue the best Fire Emblem villain. I mean, I know that I've said that Trevant is my favorite, and he's still very high up there. That hasn't changed. But I also, I said that like 5 years ago. So I don't know if that is still true. I think it might be Leon. Honestly, it's a tough call to make. But I do really really like Leon. I think he's so cool. Okay, that is it for Fire Emblem: The Sacred Stones, or at least it would be under normal circumstances. Instead, we have the very first Fire Emblem post game. This is a real, honestly, even today, it's a pretty rare occurrence that the Fire Emblem games have like post game content. But after you beat the game, if you go to the extras menu and choose map, you can explore the map of the world. After in its state after you've beaten the game with all your characters that you have from having beaten the game, and just go around and do skirmishes. There are a couple of unique things that you could only do in the creature campaign. Actually, I guess that's not true. There's actually nothing that you can only do in the creature campaign except get like the secret characters that I was talking about in the last episode. In like the Tower of Volney and stuff like that. Because there are two maps that I'm going to talk about now, or two like things that I'm going to talk about now. Because the creature campaign has no unique maps technically, because both of these unlocked like right before the end of the game. But you have the Lagdao Ruins and you have Malkain Coast or Melkane Coast. Melkane Coast is just a standalone map where you unlock it right before the end of the game. It's like after chapter 19, I think you unlock it, and it's unique because it's the only map in the game that where you don't go there for any sort of story map. It is the only map in the entire game that is relegated to only skirmishes, I guess, except the Tower of Volney and the Lagdao Ruins. And so I went there, and it was pretty cool. I actually liked the map. I think I'm trying to think about how to word this, because this is going to be relevant to the Lagdao Ruins in a second as well. The Melkane Coast, I actually did it, technically I did it at the end. I did it after the Lagdao Ruins, but I want to talk about it first because the Lagdao Ruins is like its own separate thing. Melkane Coast is a pretty cool layout for a map. It's like a big mountain range, and then you can go up either side. You can go either to the left and up or just go straight up. It kind of reminds me of Chapter 7 of Thracia, which I think is a pretty decent map, if nothing else. But I think what really gets my goat about the Melkane Coast, and this is, again, something that I'm going to bring up for the Lagdao Ruins as well, it is, like, so sad how a good, interesting map design can be ruined by the actual, like, enemy placement and other aspects of the game design. Because this is a route map. Like the whatever skirmish you do here is always going to be a route map, obviously. And there are, at least for the version, maybe it can vary a little bit. But like for what I did, there were 50 enemies on this map, and a lot of them were pretty strong. And there's just so many enemies. And you have to fight them all. You have to kill them all. It's not a kill boss. It's not a seize. It's not anything interesting like that. So I didn't feel like I was engaging with the map design that in a way that I think I could have done if this was a more interesting concept, and like if enemies were if this was like a real structured map with thought out enemy placement and stuff like that. Because it just felt like I was going around in a big circle killing enemies in waves, and it was so boring. It was so boring, and I'm going to talk about that in the Lagdao Ruins as well. But I think the Melkane Coast is one of the most egregious examples because, honestly, I thought the map was pretty cool. But I think it just goes to show how good map design can be held back by other aspects of the game design in ways that you might not think about. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about the Lagdal ruins. I mentioned in the Tower of Volney last episode that it was an 8-map gauntlet. They were all route maps, and you could not save in between maps. And I hated it. I thought it was really obnoxious. I thought it was boring and needlessly tedious. Not to mention punishing. If you lose anybody and want to reset, you have to do the whole thing over again. And let me tell you guys, that applies to the Lagdal ruins in spades. It's even worse because the enemies are even stronger and there's 10 maps instead of 8. But you still don't get any sort of break in between. You have to do them all without saving. You can turn off the console because it'll save like your suspend data. But you can't like leave to go restock your items. I was running real low on items by the end of this, let me tell you. And you can't just like feel secure in like saving and turning your game off. You also, like, if an enemy dies, you have to start, or if an ally dies, you have to start all the way back from the beginning, just like in the Tower of Volney. And it sucks. And I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm going to be fully transparent and say that I sort of broke my save state rule. And by that I mean I did break my save state rule. I did start using save states for this a little bit. And I honestly, I'm gonna try to justify it. I know nobody like super cares that much. At least I don't think so. I apologize if you do. But I don't think anyone like actually super cares. But this is an aspect of playing this series that I've been holding myself to, and that's important to me. So I want to take the time to justify it. So the Lagdal ruins is, in a lot of ways, meant to be a culmination of the creature campaign, because the creature campaign has skirmishes all over the map. You can do the Tower of Volney multiple times. You can recruit the secret characters from there. You can you can unlock them. You can train them. A lot of skirmishes will have the opportunity to drop like gems, so you can sell and buy better items. They'll drop promotion items if you want to train up and promote more of your guys. They drop stat boosters, so you can train your stats up. You can grind every character to 2020, if that's what you want to do. And I think from that perspective, looking at the Lagdal ruins as a culmination of all the grinding that you're doing in the creature campaign, it's like the last barrier, the last obstacle that the game gives to you. And so I think you can make the argument that you're not supposed to even do it until after you've done the creature campaign for a while. So from that perspective, I figured I'm not grinding, I'm not doing all this shit to get the stat boosters up. I guess I could have booted up like a save editor, but I didn't want to do that. So all I did was I save stated in between maps. That's all I did. I think I save state abused like once because I was on like map 7 of 10 and my brain was like fucking melting. And so I made a decision that I knew was going to be stupid. So I save stated. I think I did that like 1 or 2 times. So if you want to say I cheated, if you want to say I broke my save state rule, then that's fine. And I think that's valid. But I also think that like this is not a map that I like. This isn't like I wasn't engaging with the map the intended way anyway, so I don't, I feel like it's probably fine. You do get access to the Lagdal ruins and Melkane Coast, I think both after chapter 19. So you technically could do the Lagdal ruins before beating the game. But yeah, that's not worth it in my opinion. The enemies there are really strong. Most of these maps are harder than what you're going to be doing in the final 2 maps anyway. They're all route maps, and I think some of the actual individual maps here are pretty decent. There's a couple of like cool ones. Some of them have really annoying gimmicks. They do the thing that the last Tower of Volney map did, where they reuse gimmicks from fucking FE6 and FE7. There's another one with lava tiles this time. There wasn't one in the Tower of Volney, but there was one in the actual main story. So they have one with lava tiles. They have one where the water paths like raise and lower, like in fucking chapter 14 of FE6, 14X rather, which is so fucking annoying. There's like a big labyrinth with like breakable walls and stuff. That one was okay. I'm not gonna go through every single one. Most of them were like pretty forgettable. A couple of them were like decent, I think. The last one was just a big, I assume like a reference to the FE6 final chapter, because there's the boss was a necro dragon and is surrounded on all sides by necro dragons. So I think that kind of or Draco zombies rather. So I think that's supposed to be a callback to the Idun map in FE6. But yeah, not really like that interesting. And exceptionally tedious, very boring. I did unlock the characters as I went through. I got who did I get? I think it was fuck, who was first? Fado. No, not Fado. Hayden was first. Then Glenn, then Volter, and then when you beat it, you get Fado, and then if you beat it 3 times, you get Leon. And I would not wish doing this 3 times on my worst enemy. Like, this shit was so fucking boring. Okay, so I did look up the list of characters. Glenn is listed first for some reason. It says Lagdale Ruins clear 5th floor, and then it says Lagdale Ruins defeat at least 200 enemies in one run for Hayden. Glenn is 5th floor, Hayden is 200 enemies. And I got Hayden first, which just goes to show you that even in the first half of this fucking of this bullshit, I had already killed 200 enemies. There's so many fucking enemies in these maps. It took me so long. It took me multiple sittings to get through this. It was so tedious. Yeah, just unbelievable. I don't know what they were cooking. The creature campaign in general is interesting. I like the idea of having a post game for these stories. But it's just like, if you want to do Fire Emblem battles forever, and that's fine. That's like a cool idea. It kind of, it's like a single player version of being able to do multiplayer battles with your friends, right? If you just don't want the Fire Emblem to end, you want to see, big numbers go up, and you want to see, killing a bunch of enemies with your funny weapons. Like, that's all fine. But man, was it tedious. There's a couple of unique items that you can get. Specifically, there might be more, but there's gold and black gems that sell for a lot of money. I think black gems sell for 15,000 and gold gems sell for 20,000, I think. This is the first time we're seeing those. I don't think they're in any of the other GBA games, or either of the other GBA games. So I think they're only in this one. It's pretty cool. And a good way to make sure that you're keeping your weapon reserves up. When you're in there, you can only buy the shitty like iron weapons from the armory in the preps menu. So you have to make sure that you have enough going in. I was running really low for a lot of it. But I did manage it. You get some good drops in there as well some of the time. So I was able to pull out enough weapon uses to manage it in the end. A lot of my characters died. This is why I saved it for the end instead of doing it before at the end of the game, because I knew I didn't want to reset every time a character died. So I lost like Natasha, Noel, Ewan, Sala, Seth, Dusel, Ford. I lost a lot of fucking guys. Tana in the end ended up dying. My goats were Tana, Erica, Ephraim, Colm, and Nami of all people. Colm and Nami like really clutched up in here. Really fun. I don't want to forget to mention it in the wrap-up episode, so I guess I'll mention it here. Colm was fucking locking in these last few chapters, and he got a lot of really clutch silencer procs, including ones that actually did matter on like Draco zombies and stuff, and enemies that had more health than he would be able to manage with a crit. So I think that was really fun. I'm glad that I decided to go this route with him. I ended up getting a lot of really fun silencer procs. Really worthwhile gimmick to do. It obviously wasn't like particularly good. Like I wouldn't argue that Colm is like a good useful character because of this, or that Assassin is a good useful promotion necessarily. But it was a lot of fun. If nothing else, I had a really good time with it. Okay. Oh, and then while I'm on the subject of Colm, there is the one of the last thing I wrote down in my notes here. I promise I'm almost done. Um, so I forgot about this. If this is like, is this a thing that they've always been able to do? I had Colm step on a lava tile in the second, I think it's the second to last map of the Lagdal ruins, and it said disable trap, and that he turned the lava tile off. Is that something that they could always do in the GBA games? I mean, in FE6 it was only thieves, no assassins. So was that something that they could do in every game that thieves could always do? Or was it unique to assassins that started in FE7? Or is it unique to this game? Is this the first game where it became applicable? I don't really know, to be honest with you. But someone let me know if they know like how this mechanic works, because I forget. I could also just Google it. I'm gonna look it up later after I'm done recording. But okay, I think that's just about everything. We only have a couple things left to go over. We have the map gauntlet. I cannot for the life of me remember if I did the map gauntlet last time. I thought I didn't. I thought I forgot, and I was like, oh, I'll do it next time. But then I thought about it. I was like, oh shit, maybe I did. Either way, I'm just gonna say it right now. Sorry if I'm repeating myself. My favorite map from last episode was, I think, chapter 17. I think overall, this would be really funny if I said it last time and it was a different chapter. Because I remember like really struggling with this one. Like it was it's a tough call. I really like quite a few of these maps. I think 16 and 17 were both really good, and then 15 is like decent. But I think 17 is probably my favorite. I hope that's consistent with what I said last time, if I said anything last time. But if it's not, I changed my mind. Just that easy. This time around, my favorite chapter is 100% chapter 18. And fuck me, man. I have to decide whether I like it more than chapter 10. And that's chapter 10 Ephraim. And that's a really, really close call. I think I'm going to say no. I think chapter 10 is still my favorite map in the game. But wow, is it close. Chapter 18 is so much fun if you know what you're doing, and if things are going smoothly. If you don't, then it can be a little frustrating. Like if you're just choking and not doing too well. But if you're doing things, and you're like playing effectively, chapter 18 just feels smooth as butter. It's like so satisfying to go around and get all those Gorgon egg kills before they can hatch. It's really cool. But I think overall I had more fun with chapter 10. I think the mad dash to Dusel turning into a defense map is just like a more fun dynamic for a map overall. And I also like some of the obstacles that are there more. I like the ship ballista. I like all the reinforcements. I like the choke points that you can set up. There's some good. I like the Cormag recruitment in that chapter was pretty interesting too. There's a lot of really cool elements of that map that I like a lot. Okay, so that means that chapter 10 is the best game, or the best chapter in this game, in my opinion. Let me know what you guys think, if you have a personal favorite chapter from this map. What? God, I've been talking for 2 hours. Let me know if you have a personal favorite map in this game, or chapter in this game. But for me, it's chapter 10. So, for those of you keeping track, I believe it was chapter 3 in FE4, chapter 19 in FE5, chapter 11A in FE6, chapter 18 Hector in FE7, pirate ship, and then now it's chapter 18 again, actually, of FE8, which is pretty interesting. It's very funny that chapter 18 in FE7 is like maybe not even the halfway point, but in this game it's like the third to last chapter in the fucking game. That's really, really funny. Man, chapter FE7 is really long. Okay, well, I don't think there's been any news. Let me just double check, I suppose. But I think I'm pretty sure there's been nothing. Yeah, that's it. That's all there is. Did I mention the Lucina figure? I think I mentioned the Lucina figure. Oh, and Engage got added to Fire Emblem, or to the Nintendo Music feature. Surely I mentioned this. Yeah, there's no way. This was from fucking 3 months ago. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, yeah, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. And then in terms of me, I've been watching a lot of anime. I mentioned this last time. I've been watching a couple extra things since since the last time. I mentioned that I started Gundam Wing. I have already finished Gundam Wing, and in fact, I finished Gundam Wing like a few days ago. I really, really liked Gundam Wing. It's my new favorite Gundam series. For sure. Still, it's like not like I like G Gundam a lot. Also, G Gundam is a pretty close second. But Gundam Wing was like so fucking good. I know a lot of people really don't like Gundam Wing, and I get it. It has a lot of issues in its writing, but man, I just thought it was so cool. Like I love all the characters for the most part. I think the different factions and political motivations are like super interesting, even if they aren't always explained super well. I thought it was a really neat series, and I was a big fan of it. Um, okay, I think that is everything. I mentioned Kekai Sensen last time. Yeah, I mean, Gundam Wing is 49 episodes, so that's pretty much all I've been watching. Oh, I also started The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya, but I haven't made it super far in that yet. So I'm gonna reserve my judgment for when I get further. And it's pretty. I mean, so far it's enjoyable. I like it. So yeah, that's all. I think yeah, and then next time we'll be doing the wrap up episode. Let me know who your favorite character is in FE8. And I hope you all have a great rest of your day, and I will see you all next time. Bye bye.